what steps or measures did the court take or have to take between, May and June of 20 versus, feeling like they were in a place to try it in August of 2020?
The judge was incredible. The judge was Judge David Hammer in Jefferson County, and he and the circuit clerk there, Hannah Storm, really take seriously the necessity of people being able to get their cases to trial. They understand that that just has to be something that happens. That's not a back burner issue. The wheels of justice have to keep turning. So they really worked hard to come up with a protocol that was going to let the litigants feel safe, let the lawyers feel safe, and most particularly allow the jurors to feel like they could come in and focus on deciding a case rather than being worried about their own safety. So they did a lot of things that are unusual. The judges made real efforts to upgrade the sound system and some things. So because of its age, we weren't able to actually choose the jury there. There was no room for it. So the judge and the clerk and the security staff worked out that we could do jury selection at a nearby civic center. Oh. So a couple blocks from the courthouse, they had set out maybe 60 folding chairs on the basketball court. They'd put in a riser. We used the sound system that they usually use for basketball games, and they brought the jurors in there, did a temperature scan as they came in, did the questionnaire for various symptoms, and then escorted everyone into assigned seats that were socially distanced. Everyone was masked the whole time for jury selection.
How big was your veneer?
I think we had about 40 people to get down to 6 jurors and 2 alternates. So it wasn't bad. All of them except one showed up. I think there'd been a pretty significant effort made ahead of that to weed out anyone who was ill in a risk category or otherwise concerned about being there.
I'm interested in that. What are you aware of? Like, what steps had the court taken to screen out people that were just going to be no-goes if they showed up that day?
Great question. The judge sent out a specific questionnaire in addition to the typical juror questionnaire that laid out the plan for making it safe, the hygiene plan, protocols, but then also asked that they correspond with the clerk if they had any particular concerns. I don't have any data for how many people responded, but by and large, the age range of the panel was probably 35 to only a few older than 55. Once we got through voir dire, the judge did allow whoever was speaking to remove his or her mask. So when I was examining a witness or giving my opening statement, my mask was off. I was far from the jury. I mean, the trade-off was we were going to be set way back to avoid any potential, air spread. But we were able to take our mask off. Likewise, the witness was allowed to remove his or her mask when testifying. And so the court was great. And these security gentlemen in the courtroom were awesome. They had these little covers that they put over the microphone. They were like little like microphone condoms. And they put it on over the whole thing. And each person had their own cover that you put on the microphone. And as soon as someone left either the counsel podium or the witness stand, 2 of the security guys would come over, they would spray it all down, wipe it all off, and make sure it was desanitized before the next witness or lawyer approached that microphone. So with those precautions, we were allowed to take off the masks. But I have hearing impairment. I rely on hearing aids, but also a lot on lip reading. So anytime that someone was masked, it was a real challenge for me. We were required to be masked at all times except when we were speaking. And anytime that we had our mask off to speak, we either needed to be at the podium, which, as I said, was pretty far removed. I would say we were maybe as far as 30 feet from where the jury was sitting. And to give perspective, the court had basically turned the courtroom backwards. So the jury was sitting in the gallery where the public would normally sit, socially distanced. And they were spread out in risers up. The lawyers then the defense sat in what would have been the jury box, and plaintiff side sat off to the side as well, so that we weren't with our back to the judge who stayed on the bench. So we were kind of to the side of everything. Because of where the witness stand was moved to, that meant that oftentimes the lawyers were behind the witness. And so the judge gave us leeway to move anywhere in the courtroom we wanted, as long as we were socially distanced, to be able to have a vantage point of the witness while testifying and the counsel asking questions. So I would say for 90% of the trial, when I wasn't at the podium, I was working out of my lap from a bench or from the gallery or from some side, moving my chair around to the side. So there was a lot of moving around in the courtroom, and the judge encouraged it. He wanted to make sure that we were comfortable, that we were seeing the witness, that we were seeing what exhibit was being displayed. But there were some drawbacks to that. Obviously, my partner and I were far away from each other at times, and passing notes and things like that. We just sort of had to get up and walk over to each other. I wasn't with my client the whole time. Normally, you want to be sitting there, you want to be associated with him. I just had to leave him. He couldn't go wandering around with me, so I had to leave him sitting where he was and go someplace else. And then objecting, because you were away from your microphone, you really had to stand up and project so that the judge could hear what your objections were.
That's what I was going to ask you next. For opening, closing examinations, did you always have to be speaking into a mic?
We had to stay at the podium. The judge felt like that was the place where we could be sure the jury could hear us because of the microphone, and because of the removal of the mask, the judge felt like that was far enough away that he could be comfortable and the jury could be comfortable. We weren't, spitting on him while we were giving our closing or something like that. So we were stuck at the podium.
And did you mention that the jurors, who were now sitting out in the gallery, that they had risers for some of them, so they were elevated?
Yeah, the layout of the courtroom was such that the gallery goes up on tiers.
Naturally? Was that just the way it's built?
Old style, big courtroom, yeah. So they were pretty far spread out from each other, and they had good vantage point. They could see pretty well. We made sure that we were ready to blow up our exhibits really big, though, because we knew somebody was going to be stuck in that back row.